Good evening in China, good afternoon in Europe and Middle East, and good morning if you are following us from the Americas. My name is Josep Frank, and I am the Dean of ESADE Business School. I am really pleased to welcome you all to this webinar on COVID-19, Lessons Learned from the Chinese Experience. Today's webinar is part of ESADE's Stay Connected platform, through which we offer different webinar sessions covering current issues, which are available on our website, as well as our YouTube and LinkedIn channels. Our aim with this webinar is to share our academic knowledge and experience with all of you. Today's webinar is very special. COVID-19 has impacted the entire world in an unexpected and unprecedented manner. With more than 5 million people infected globally as of today, and a death toll about 300,000 individuals, this pandemic is severely hitting almost every country and industry. And of course, higher education is no exception. Chinese business schools were among the first to be affected and locked down, and business schools in other parts of the world quickly followed. Around the globe, hundreds of thousands of courses and millions of students had to face countless challenges and transition to an online format literally overnight. Now, as we see China slowly returning to normal life, if it was normal life what we had before COVID-19, but that's a question for another discussion probably, all the eyes from other parts of the world are watching to see how Chinese business schools anticipate the future. What lessons can we learn from the Chinese experience? What are the do's and the don'ts for fellow deans? What could we have done better? What are the main challenges ahead of us? Can we expect post-COVID to be similar to the pre-COVID world? And to discuss about these questions, we are privileged today of having with us a distinguished panel with the deans of a few top business schools in China, all of them long-standing ESADE partners. So allow me to introduce you to our panel members today in alphabetical order. First, we have Professor Fang Ruo Chen. Professor Chen is the Dean of Untitled College of Economics and Management at Shanghai Jiao Tong University. Professor Chen, welcome to the seminar.
Thank you. Hello.
Next, we have Professor Qiao Liu. Is the Dean of the Guangfa School of Management, Peking University in Beijing. Welcome, Professor Liu.
Thanks, Joseph. Thanks for having me.
And last but not least, Professor Yun Lu is the Dean of Lingnan University College at Sun Yat-sen University in Guangzhou. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Dean Frank.
Thank you for being here, and allow me also to thank you all for your generosity. When COVID-19 hit Spain, we had to lock down and get confined at home, and there was a scarcity of medical supplies. All these fellow deans kindly donated us face masks that ESADE was able to distribute to different hospitals in Barcelona and in Madrid that had a shortage of these equipments. So thank you for your generosity in a moment when our country badly needed these supplies. So we are going to start with our session. At the end of our dialogue for about an hour, I will moderate a 15 minutes question and answer session with the questions that arise throughout the session, which you can send us via chat. Remember that the webinar will be available through our different channels. Let me start with the first question. I would like our panelists to share with us, how did you live when your schools had to lock down? And allow me to start with Dean Junlu, because on January 22nd, both of us were in Washington, D.C. Dean Junlu kindly invited me to be a speaker at the Lingnan Global Forum. And I remember that at the end of the conference, coming back from the official dinner offered by the Lingnan Foundation, and as we were walking back to the hotel, the Chinese delegation decided to go to a pharmacy. I don't remember if this was a CVS or Walgreens or which one was, but they were looking for face masks because you were told that face masks were sold out in China. And a few days later, you had to lock down. So, Dean Lu, how did you leave this transition and this lockdown in Guangzhou?
Okay, thank you very much, Dean Frank. Yeah, so we was in Washington, D.C., so in January. So when I back to Guangzhou, so Guangzhou already locked down. So in view of COVID-19 broke out and increasing reported cases in China, so quick actions have been taken at both the university and the university level and the college level to prevent the virus from spreading. To ensure the educational continuity, so many guidelines have been proposed and employed quickly, covering campus operations, student affairs, administration arrangements, teaching and learning, and so on. So these are the following are the steps we have taken. The first is official announcement of physical lockdown. The university announced a new total lockdown in late January. So actually, when I back from United States, it already locked down. So I was informed I must wear masks, otherwise be punished. So by the officers in the airport. The university also decided to extend the Chinese New Year holidays and strong urge that all students should stay at home and should not return to the campus. The second is work from home arrangement from university staff. During the university lockdown period, we reduced campus activities and limited service were provided. All staff and faculty members work from home as a part of new remote and reduced operating model. The third is infection control measures on campus. We keep reminding students to follow the hygiene, health, and safety instructions provided by the local authorities and the health department. For example, wearing masks, maintain social distance, and 14 days self quarantine. So we maintain very close daily connection with the staff and the student through WeChat. So we require them to report their health status and submit an e-health screening form on daily basis. So we have been working hard to mitigate the impact of the COVID-19 outbreak on our students and strive to achieve the goal of zero infection. So actually, so at the current moment, so we achieve the zero infection.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me continue with Dean Fangruo Chen, because a couple of weeks later, and this was early February, we were both supposed to meet in London for the AMBA and BGA board meeting, where we both serve, and you were not able to make it. I recall this was the first time you were connected by phone, and you were explaining us the situation in Shanghai. So how did you live in Shanghai, all this transition and all this lockdown?
Thank you, Joseph. Hello from Shanghai. Let me first emphasize that a little background about this outbreak when it broke out. It was during the Chinese New Year holiday, and so basically people started going home in mid-January. So for those of you outside of China, you may not know that this is the most popular, most important holiday in a year in China. And for universities, uh, the winter break started in mid-January. So and for the whole country, people started traveling at around that time, going home, leaving big cities, going back home to be with families, with relatives. So I just want you to know that this basically set the stage for the outbreak. So when it happened, or we became very aware of the virus, the coronavirus, it was in January, and at that time the campus was almost empty. So in some way we were lucky. We didn't have to deal with a lot of students on campus. Uh, and as Joseph mentioned, obviously, all travels were canceled, and lockdown started. So basically, we were already in a holiday mode, and this lockdown basically sort of make that holiday mode even more restrictive. Basically, you confine yourself in your home. So because of this coincidence, the job for universities is relatively easy. Basically, people were already home. You just keep staying home, and the university very quickly decided to postpone to expand to extend the winter holiday. So people don't come back. Students cannot return to campus.
Seems we have a problem with the sound, with the connection of Din Fang Ruo Chen. Let's see if we can fix that. Let me continue by asking Din Xiao Liu how you went through this episode in Beijing at the Guanghua School of Management.
Situation very similar to what Fang Ruo just described. The COVID-19 broke out 23rd. I think the lockdown actually came in 23rd. It was during the winter break, and most students actually have gone back home, and the campus are pretty much empty. So I think in some sense we're quite lucky because we're fortunate to have enough time to prepare for the upcoming spring semester. It's not during the semester. It's Chinese holiday, Chinese New Year holiday, and I think from our side, we try to evaluate the situation very carefully because the new semester will be like 4 weeks away. I want to know that whether we can contain the virus as soon as possible in 1 month or two, so the spring semester can start at the usual time. But very quickly, when we see the infection cases go up very quickly and dramatically, we realize that there's no way the students can return to the campus for the spring semester. Therefore, we made a decision that we have to move all of the teaching online. And I think my colleagues actually have been working very hard to ensure that we have the IT system available once the spring semester kicked off, and we have to do teaching online. So I think we have been staying in this mode for about 3 or 4 months already, and up to this point, the campus is still shut down, and we still, teach our students online, and we hope that maybe by June, when the situation gets much stabler, probably we can have a graduating class return to the campus, and hopefully the executive teaching will resume. But up to this point, we're still in this shutdown mode. So thanks.
Okay, thank you for your comments. It's quite clear that in China you had because of you had the holidays of the Chinese New Year, you had time to prepare the courses online. Something that other schools around the world, when we had to lock down, we didn't have this time. We had to go literally overnight. But of course, you extended the holidays with the hoping that the crisis would be over, but soon you realized that the crisis was here to stay, at least for a few months, and then you start to do the transition online. Tell us what went well and what didn't go well in this transition to online. Let me ask first to Fang Chen, now that we have him back. What went well and what didn't go well?
I'm sorry. Yeah. So what went well is the transition to online teaching went much better than we expected. Before it happened, we were, to be honest, we were very worried because online teaching obviously was not new to us, but basically nobody had done it before this crisis. So nobody had really real experience with online teaching, and suddenly we had to move hundreds of courses online. And as Joseph said, we were lucky to have some time to prepare, and the total amount of time, I think it's about a week. So the whole university got together. We spent about a week discussing all kinds of potential ways that this might go wrong. So the preparation were very extensive. And as a result of that, obviously, the first week went better than we thought. And then obviously there were things to be fine-tuned and then continue to improve. So I think it went well. It went well. And obviously, the biggest challenge is technology. Just like moments ago, I was cut off. I had no idea why. So online teaching, same thing happened sometimes because a lot of students were online at the same time, and maybe the bandwidth was not sufficient to support it, and either it was cut off or somehow went very slowly. But other than that, I think everything went fairly well as far as online teaching goes. Joseph?
Dean Liu from Wanghua. What went well and what did not go well in this transition to the online?
Okay, actually, as I said, we were quite fortunate that we have some time to carefully plan for the online teaching, and Guanghua has quite a wide range of programs. We have undergraduate, MBA, EMBA, PhD programs, and we figure that it's relatively easier to move the courses for full-time programs online because we don't have any other options available, and the education has to continue, and students need to have their courses taken so they can graduate on time. So we made a decision very early on. We're going to move the courses of undergraduate for undergraduate programs and MBA programs, many full-time MBA programs online, and we literally delay the delivery of EMBA courses and non-degree executive teaching to later time, because to be honest, we're not very ready to teach executive students online. So I think we did some survey actually among the students, giving them the options. One is that you can take classes online. The other one is that you can wait, but that may have some implications for your graduation. Maybe you have to spend 1 more year, or maybe have 6 more months to complete study. I think most of the full-time students actually they're fully aware of the consequence, and they actually vote yes to this online teaching. But for our executive students, I think the answer actually is overwhelmingly negative. They worry about the learning experience is going to be compromised by online teaching. So if you ask what went well, I would say that for the courses we try to deliver online, the feedbacks actually are quite positive. We did have some problems like the Fang just described, but overall I think the feedbacks are very positive. And in terms of what didn't go well, I think probably we should be more firm in the very beginning that all courses have to move online. Because at that point in time, we are thinking maybe the whole situation will be totally different in 1 or 2 months. So just waiting for 1 or 2 months will not have too much impact. But turned out 3 or 4 months have gone, and right now we're still in this shutdown mode. So I think when you make decisions, maybe you can listen to students, but in the meantime, you have to think about the long-term consequence. And if we make the decision 1 more time again, I would say that we're going to move all the courses online. So back to you, Joseph.
Thank you, Dean Liu. Dean Lu, at Lignan, what went well and what didn't go that well with the transition to the online?
Okay, thank you, Joseph. So actually, we moved the course online for our G3 program. So at February, we starting online teaching. From April, we moved all courses for full-time, so just as Dean Liu Chao mentioned. So for full-time programs, we move all courses online. So actually, it's, the feedback is much better than we expected. So professors are used to gradually online teaching. So for the your question is what went well. So in my view, courses with less interactivity and well-organized content is good. So, but for the courses require intensive interaction, group discussion, and immediate response from students, it's not so good. And so for each course, we have at least 1 teaching assistant. Teachers are required to establish an online group for each course to catering for specific needs of class management, such as uploading related learning materials, checking attendance, tutorial, and so on. So basically, it's good. So for the online teaching, so in my view, we need to use to the situation in the future. So for the forthcoming months, I expected much of the teaching and the research may be moved need to move to online. Thank you.
Okay, so the obvious question is what can we learn from that experience, or what could we have done differently? I mean, Dean Liu was already saying that probably we should have been more assertive and push more to the online transition, because we all expected that this was going to last shorter than what it has really been the case. So what we could have done different if we were to go through this situation again? Any suggestion, Fang Ruo? Would you have made a different decision if this was happening today again?
Really not. You know, suppose we were to do this again, and obviously, we obviously, with the benefit of hindsight, perhaps the area that we didn't expect the most was the overseas situation. We initially we really just thought that, you know, in China, if this thing returned to normal, and then basically that's the end of it. The initial expectation about the situation in China were reasonable. I think we expected, you know, I don't know, Joseph, if you remember, in that board meeting in February, I was saying that, you know, perhaps, you know, in April or May, you know, in China, situation will be under control, and that forecast was basically accurate. But we didn't expect the overseas situation to be so much worse than any of our wildest dream may imagine. So the most part, I think, is really our international students. That part we didn't do well because if we were to do it again, and I think we probably should emphasize more on the teaching aspect for our international students. Because, you know, it's difficult because different students are in different parts of the world, and the time difference makes it very difficult to sit together for a class. So on that dimension, I think we should have done better, and we would do differently if we were to do it again. Domestically, I think for the programs where most or almost all students were from China, I think we're doing the right thing. And remember, most of our MBA or EMBA programs are part-time, and for these students, the semester concept is not so important to begin with. Because teaching takes place on weekends and in a very concentrated way. So perhaps for those students, we could still wait a little bit and then do it in a much more condensed way, and then preserve the advantage of face-to-face. So I think I don't know, I think we were not that wrong on that dimension. I think it's okay for the domestic programs, but for international programs, yes, we could have done better.
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree. International students have to go back to their countries. They are sometimes in different time zones, and in some cases, there are countries where you have a very bad or poor internet connection. So even though you can be equipped with the latest technology to broadcast your classes or to connect with the students, not always on the other end, you know, the quality of the internet connection is enough, and this is one of the main issues probably.
Yeah, Joseph, I just want to add that in fact, what you just said is also true in China, because our students are at home, and China is a big country, and there are parts of the country where the internet connection was not so good. So that is something that caught us a little off guard as well. Joseph?
Yeah, thank you. What about Dean Liu? Something that you would have done different?
Actually, I want to probably slightly change the angle of this question. Instead of talking about lessons, the things we can do better. Probably I want to share with you a couple of things we have done quite well. I think that probably can have some implications for my fellow colleagues. I think there are two things I want to particularly point out what we have done quite well. I think the number one is that because the whole country back in February and March, pretty much the whole country was locked down. I think people are very panicked, and the students stay at home. And so we spent a lot of time working very hard to reach out to our students, let them know what our school decisions actually are, and how they can plan for the upcoming semester. And I think that actually helps a lot, because when you're locked down at home, you feel the strong need to be connected. So we have done a lot of work to ensure that our students know what is going on, and how they can catch up with their courses later on, etc. The second thing is that because the whole country has been locked down, so I think right now people actually even value education even more than before. So what we tried differently is that we offered, I think beginning February 5th, we offer our online free public lecture series, which covers 8 topics, from the cost, economic damage, economic effects of COVID-19, and what could be implications for business education for small and medium-sized enterprises, and how to manage the workplace, etc. So we'll talk about the topics ranging, a wide range of issues, and that actually gives the school a lot of visibility, and also the students and alums, and also I think all of the stakeholders, when they watch that we are speaking out, and we offer our opinions about what has been going on. We're trying to make some proposal about what kind of economic policies the government should take to deal with the problems. I think that actually has drawn a lot of attention, and also I think the general public, our stakeholders, and our students, alums, value that very much. I remember that one of the lectures drew more than 7 million viewers. I was told that the number of viewers actually has exceeded Victoria's Secret live show. I don't know whether it's true or not. Yeah. So I think that is something we have done quite well, especially in difficult time. People need to find answers to some of the questions they have, and they need to find hope. And I think in this kind of time, education is very important. And I think if we do more offering this kind of public lecture series and reaching out to students has been quite useful. So back to you, Joseph.
Thank you. Okay, Dean Liu, any comment on your side on what would you have done better?
Yeah, so if it come again, so I guess because we have experience before, so we can do better and decide more quickly, and so use the many ways to help the student and the faculty members to do the better. Thank you.
Yeah, one one comment that I wanted to share with you, and that's something that I have received the same comment from different people at the SADC. I mean, the careers director was telling me that even though we are working from home, literally we are closer than ever with the students and with the companies. I mean, we are communicating more than before. And the same was also said by a faculty member earlier this week. I mean, she was saying, I am receiving more questions and more comments from the students by email than what I used to receive when we were in the situation of face to face. And that probably also reflects a situation where students will feel alone, or they want to interact more with us. So I guess that as business schools, it is our responsibility to keep the channels open with the students and keep this dialogue evolving. Now let's look at the future. Let's think about ahead. And and now looking at the future, what are the challenges that you expect um, in the near future for the business schools? Dean Liu, would you like to start about future challenges?
Sure. I think actually this is a question we have been discussing with my colleagues, all the time in the past 3 or 4 months. I think the problem is that right now there are a huge amount of uncertainties out there, and we don't know what new things will come out eventually. But I think in some sense we are talking about we look forward to returning to a normal time, like back to pre-COVID-19 time period, so can continue our business as usual. But it turned out that maybe there's no way we can return to the old time. Something has changed for good. I would say that two things probably us, especially being school education. One is the format of teaching. I think it will be totally different after the COVID-19, the post-COVID-19 period. So after people have experienced online teaching, after realize that it could be, in some sense, much more efficient to have some kind of a hybrid model, so you can combine online teaching with offline teaching, and you can have multiple meetings at the same time, and teaching and learning, even administration could be more efficient through the online platforms. I think it's going to be very hard to go back to the old model. I think that is probably something we have to think about going forward, how we can make this much more efficient, and eventually come up with maybe some kind of a hybrid model to do in school education. So I think that is the one thing. The other challenge is about the contents of business education. So what our professors are going to teach going forward. Because we're seeing that a lot of things are changing right now. People are talking about some of the mega trends. For example, the potential decouplings, not just decoupling between US and China, but also maybe US and Europe, maybe Europe and China, and everywhere. And also people are talking about the globalization is in fleet. And I think another important thing is that the trust, I think mutual trust, which is the foundation of market-based transactions. But unfortunately, because of the pandemic, it's eroding. So I think given that, I wonder what we can teach our future business leaders and how they're going to confront a world which is not familiar, which is probably a brand new world. So I think those are challenges we're facing. And from our school perspective, what we're trying to do is that on the one hand, we established a digital education center just 1 month ago. We hope that with this kind of new initiative, we can explore some kind of a hybrid model of business education and trying some pilot programs. Hopefully that will involve eventually can become some kind of a new model for the teaching format. And the second part, we encourage our professors to do research on those very urgent, important issues. And so I think in the past 3 or 4 months, our professors actually have been quite productive. They produce policy notes, case examples, academic papers, and a lot of things. And I think the important thing is that the topics of this research are mainly about those mega trends we are observing. And we're still hoping that by working more proactively, we can better prepared for this uncertain future. And so right now we still not hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. Back to you, Joseph.
Thanks, Xiaolu. Fang Ruo, Chen, what are the challenges that you see in our future?
There are near-term and long-term challenges, and if we start with the near-term, short-term challenges, there are a few. I think one is financial, but our financial health is good, and but our executive education program has been cut significantly. So there will be some impact on our financial situation. That's one, and the other short-term impact is really technology. We still have so much to learn about technology, even though this time technology really is a savior for this bad situation. But still, there are lots of things we need to learn to be a better consumer of technology. So the advantage we know, right? Sometimes students say that in the past they were not on the front row. Now every student is on the front row, and if it's a great professor, and it can be heard by thousands of students, or tens of thousands, or even more. And so they feel that because of technology, they have access to great teaching. It was easier than before. So in terms of and then obviously short-term challenge, there's also our international partnerships, and a lot of international meetings have been canceled, and I don't know how we're gonna recoup some of those losses. And but in the long run, I will say there are fundamental impact that may change the industry of education forever. So this idea of teaching, the idea of learning, and the idea of the purpose of university may all change. Because online teaching was done so massively, and the access to great professors can be made so widespread. And what does it mean to being a university? Well, what's the purpose of physically, being confined to one university? Can you combine the advantages of different universities? You can have great professors from different parts of the world, different parts of university. What is the idea? What is the advantage that universities can provide in this new environment? And I think that is a big challenge. That's a big uncertainty that I'm worried about. And another long-term challenge is international partnerships. And politics can get into the way, and I think for business schools especially, I think business communities should collaborate. Despite all the political differences, I think it is important for the economy to be globalized, and business schools should play an important role. So I think there's something for us to think about. How to collaborate internationally, how to get our separate business communities to talk to each other, and to find ways to move the world economy forward. I think that's a long-term challenge facing all business schools. Joseph?
Yeah, thank you very much. Very interesting comments, very interesting insights. Believe that, yeah, you are right in the sense that there is a role to be played by business schools in this situation, because the world post-COVID is also a world of economic recession, and how to recover from this recession, we definitely need to play a role. Dean Lu, what are the challenges for you at Lignan in the future?
Okay, so in my view, the challenge for business school, so the force, how to educate the students, the leadership to deal with the era of VUCA. So what does it mean VUCA? V means volatile, U means uncertain, C means complex, and A means ambiguous. So how to cultivate the talents, the students in such kind of environment? So that's the one thing. So we must think. The second is the international partnership. So just mentioned by the Fang Ruo. So because the airline company canceled the flights, the visa application become more difficult because the governments locked down the city or the country. So it influenced the international cooperation very severely. The third, I think, is so how for the professors. So how do you get used to online teaching? So because thousands of students are watching you, including their families, their parents, their sisters, their brothers. So to some extent, so because the online courses are available, so for the students, so maybe in the future we do not need to so many professors, so many instructors, just maybe so in different disciplines, just one or two or three enough. So it's challenge for our professors. So and because the pandemic, so globally, so just Dean Chen, so just mentioned, so all of the business school maybe feel the pressure from the funding. So because so in China the government fiscal income decreased 10% during the first quarter. So a lot of enterprises suffer big loss. So the filling orders and the more strict check for the quality of the commodities. So I guess we will feel soon. So the financial problem. But currently, so it's good for Linnan. So because we have long-term year accumulation. Okay, and so we have many alumnus and a very strong board of trustee to provide financial support. So, but so in terms of business school, so we need to pay very much attention to the physical problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I fully agree. I mean, when you were mentioning the VUCA times, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, we've been teaching this concept in our classrooms, but now we are experiencing firsthand what VUCA really means with this pandemic. I also believe that the conception of what is short term and long term has changed for all of us. When we talk about long term, we see this concept of long-term 3 years planning, 5 years ahead, probably it's something that with all this pandemic we are thinking much more in the next future, and you have identified a number of issues in the future, but I would like to look at the immediate future. Next term, next fall, how is it going to be like? Student mobility, is it going to be back student mobility or not yet? Visas, Cambridge University has already announced that next year they are going to be online for the entire academic year. So that's a challenge in terms of university, because one thing is, okay, we all had to transition online as an emergency situation, and probably everyone is more or less tolerant with the situation. But thinking of planning an entire academic year with an online situation, it's a completely different thing. So as deans, how do you anticipate next fall or next academic year? What is your forecast of how is it going to look like? I know you don't have a crystal ball. Dean Lu, would you like to start about what do you think about the next academic year?
So for the students, so domestic students, so for the school, so because the university are reopening, students are coming back. So we do not worry about for the operations within the school. So as we discussed before, because the other part of the world, the COVID-19 are breaking out. Some countries are becoming more serious. So just for example, the Brazil. So I just heard the condition is very serious. So we are facing very much uncertainty. So on next semester, if we still continue to lock the board of the country, so there's no problem. But we can't. So we can't continue to lock down the borders. So we need to open, and the enterprises need to import and export and to start their business. So we are worried about there are some factors, maybe the virus may be returned from the overseas. So in next semester we will face very great uncertainty, and the current situation may be the normal in next semester. So actually, we have prepared for that. Thank you.
Thanks. Dean Liu, how do you anticipate next semester, next fall?
Okay. I don't know. I'm optimistic. So I hope the rainy days will be over by September. I pray for that. So I hope that the students, faculty members, and our staff can return to this beautiful PKU campus. We can resume our regular teaching and research. So that is my best hope. But right now I'm really worried about a fair number of our students staying aboard. Especially we have this global leadership undergraduate program with some of students from ISADE as well. And I really worry that whether they can come to China in September to start their studying here because of this COVID-19 situation. So that is my biggest concern right now. And I think for the upcoming semester, I don't know. Everybody hopes that we can go back to normal, and but we don't know what the normal actually is. Probably we need. It's a good time for us to think about and redefine the so-called new normal, or maybe the normal. I understand that a big part of our business will be very different for good. So I think in the upcoming semester, actually we were talking about some of the pilot programs we're going to kick off to ensure that we can better prepare for this extremely uncertain future. For example, right now actually we're facing financial constraint, just like every business school in the world. The demand for business education actually is changing. So I think in the new semester we need to reach out to target new audience, and so we need to need to do that. Uh, in the meantime, I think the professors' research agendas will be different because this virus actually has posed a lot of challenges to the world and also to business school education and business school research. There's so many interesting issues we have to research into. We have to come up with solutions, come up with good suggestions. So I think the research agenda will be different. So we are going to kick off some pilot programs to encourage our professors to work more on these cases and academic papers and even courses which are more relevant and related to COVID-19 outbreak. So I think a lot of things we can look forward to, but my best hope is the virus can be contained as soon as possible all around the world, so we can back to normal, even though we don't know what normal means. Thanks. Back to you.
Thank you, Fang Ruo. How do you expect next semester to be like?
Joseph, it is dangerous to make predictions at this time. But if I have to predict the fall semester, I hope our students will come back and normal classes will resume, and campus life will continue. But so for the domestic students, I think this is probably not so far-fetched. But for international students, I'm pessimistic. Fall semester is probably still very difficult for them to all return to campus. So the fall term is I think at best a mixed bag. Resuming life on campus is great, but we will be missing something that we used to have, and then they are not returning, at least not in the fall. And I agree with Professor Liu and Professor Lu said earlier. There are bright spots for us down the horizon, and in particular, there are a crisis puts the world in such a dire situation, and there's a saying that don't waste a crisis, and business schools should not waste a crisis. And I think we have tons of things to do in terms of research, in terms of teaching, in terms of our service to our society, to the world, and there's so much to do. That's the bright side. But in what kind of environment, in what kind of normalcy are we going to do this? It's not clear. Joseph?
Thank you very much. Let's have a look at the different questions that we have been receiving, and let me start by questions that are related to faculty. We have not talked about faculty that much, and there is one question from the audience: to which extent faculty research has been affected by the crisis? And And as deans of business schools, if you have taken any action to help, for instance, faculty who are in a tenure track positions. So I don't know, Dean Liu, would you like to start about this?
Okay. Actually, let me put it this way. In terms of faculty research, I think online platforms actually, in some sense, to a certain extent, make communications between collaborators even more effective. And also, because you stay at home, probably got more time to do research. So it's it's a little bit surprising to me. Actually, in my personal case, I become more productive. Actually, I have wrap up a couple of academic papers which are long overdue during this time, and I think that probably is one of the unexpected benefits of this COVID-19. But for our junior faculty members, I think we basically will do the same thing. We encourage them to do important research, to work on important issues. And also, I think the crisis itself provides some big questions for people to work on. And so I think some of them right now actually have started with some research projects about those issues, and I hope that that can help help them publish paper on the one hand. On the other hand, the research can have profound implications for what is going on for the policy debate, etc. So I do not see any particular change about research which caused by the crisis. But I think on teaching and other aspects, definitely we see a huge amount of differences, challenges. Joseph.
Thank you. Dean Lu, faculty and research at Lingnan.
So I agree with Dean Liu Qiao, he just mentioned. So because the faculty members are, because of the pandemic, we all so basically stay at home. To some extent, we have more time to do the research. And so in my view, for the professors must use to their research way and how to cooperate with the co-authors, so online. And the pandemic provide many topics to these school professors. So actually, it's especially for the PhD students and the professors, that provide many topics. So much more than before. So actually, it's a good chance. So for us. Thank you, Joseph.
Thanks. Fang Ruo, any effect on faculty research, faculty policy at Shanghai, Jiaotong?
It's our school is not making any changes to the tenure policy, and in terms of productivity, I agree with what has been said. Seems like you have nowhere to go. So, for example, I've been in Shanghai for the past 5 months, so I have not gone anywhere. And does it mean that you can concentrate on your research? It depends, I guess. It depends. It depends on the personal situation, on the family. So to answer your question, Joseph, in short, we are not making any changes to the tenure process, the tenure clock. But in terms of personal challenges, I guess the answer is it depends. I mean, if a junior faculty is encountering personal hardship because of family members who are infected or whatever, we may want to consider that situation. So maybe the system could allow for some kind of sabbatical because of this crisis. So I guess, so Joseph, I'm answering your question. So we are not making any changes at this moment, but there might be special cases that deserve our attention.
Thank you. There is another question that has to do on how the content of the curriculums are changing. You mentioned during the conversation that there are changes as well in the topics that we teach. And there is a specific question about the MBA curriculum. Is the traditional MBA curriculum going to change due to the COVID and due to what we have learned? Which are the new topics or new areas that you believe that as a result of this crisis, we have to include in our MBA provision? So, Liu Qiao, what do you think? Should we change the MBA curriculum? What are the new topics that you see in the future?
Yeah, actually, this is a very good question. It's also a question we have been discussing within the school a lot in recent years. I do believe that because of the profound impact of COVID-19, the demand side of business education has changed a lot. So that comes mainly from two fronts. Number one, probably your audience, your students will be different going forward. And number two, what expect to learn will also be different. On the first point, for example, right now we're as I said, we run a lot of small and medium-sized enterprises in China. Actually, they need make a transformation, and they are eager to learn business knowledge. They want to know how to make digital transformation, how to survive in this very difficult time. So I think this is one of the areas our school wants to get into going forward. How we can make sure that we can deliver quality business education to this group of managers, entrepreneurs who are in very urgent need for this kind of knowledge. So I think that pretty much is a change of demand side. And the second, I think you mentioned contents. I would say that a couple of things probably will emerge as an important topic to work on going forward. Number one is just like we're having this panel discussion online due to the development of digital technology. So I think digital transformation, how we can use big data, AI, etc., to transform the traditional industry, including education industry, I think it will be one of the important topics on our curriculum going forward. Number two, I think we also talk about leadership because you are right now facing a very different world, and if the globalization can continue, it will be different type of globalization. So how can we manage, our companies, manage institutions, manage organizations in this extremely uncertain new world, and what kind of leadership we need to develop? I think that will be something probably different from before. And finally, I would say if we think about the core courses of business education, I would say that some of the some elements about big data analysis, AI, eventually will become a core part of our MBA or maybe EMBA core courses. And so we need to make more efforts on those fronts as well. So yeah, that's pretty much what I want to say. Yeah, back to you, Joseph.
Thanks. Fang Ruo, do you anticipate changes in the MBA curriculums? Do you anticipate new topics or areas to be included in the future?
The near-term changes are probably just having more recent cases in our classes. So I think that's the immediate impact. And I think long term, there are new topics. Obviously, there are new topics, as we mentioned earlier. There are new topics for research, and those topics will eventually get into our classrooms. So for example, in China, because of the lockdown, people started, obviously spending a lot of time at home, and there's in Chinese it's called 宅经济. For lack of a better translation, it's called homebound economy. So when people are somehow restricted in this very small space, what's the impact on the economy? What's the impact on consumption and consumption behavior and so on? And another dimension I think is very important is the globalization, as mentioned earlier by Dean Liu. So global supply chains and risk management, and these are all topics that they were not new, but I think the coronavirus situation brought a new dimension to these old topics. So I think I don't know if there will be an entirely new subject that will appear in the curriculum, but there will be subtle changes to what we teach, and there are probably some new dimensions. So I don't see a very drastic change in the curriculum. Joseph?
Okay, thank you. Dean Lu, any change that you anticipate in the MBA curriculum?
Actually, during the past years, we have introduced many new courses so into MBA curriculum, such as machine learning, so AI, etc. So and so how to communicate with data, so big data. So the courses. So because of the outbreak of the COVID-19, so I guess we need to make a little bit change. So for the student, so how to deal with the emergency situation. So, and because Chinese government take more open policy, so more measures to introduce foreign investors and encourage more enterprises to go abroad. So we need to in the course, so let students understand more deeply so about the history, the culture, so the law of the foreign countries. We need to do a little bit change, including let students understand the technology development trend. So how the new technology influence the business. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I have left for the end a final question. We have many other questions, but many of them are related with the campus life and with the campus experience. There are people asking us, okay, you can learn something online, but how do you replicate the campus experience? How do you replicate, the experience of being in Shanghai, in the town of, and visit the country? And also, there are people concerned about the international dimension of the students in the classrooms. I mean, if there is a reduced mobility, and we only have locals in the classroom, this dimension it's probably lost. So any idea, any suggestion, how can we replicate the campus life, the campus experience in an online context? So maybe Fang Ruo, would you like to start with this last question?
How do you replicate the campus life online? I find that very difficult. I find that very difficult. And obviously, you know, we could use technology. Somehow, the virtual world can be as close to real life as possible, and I think we are seeing some of that, online teaching. But there's still something missing. The face-to-face, Joseph. If we were face-to-face now, I think it's gonna be feel different, and something is missing, and I don't see a technology that can compensate for that. So I don't know. On that dimension, it's probably very difficult to completely replicate campus life. Joseph?
Yeah. Any suggestion, any idea on how we can replicate the nice campus experience at Peking University?
Actually, very, very tough question, and I kind of agree with Fan Ray. There's no way you can replicate campus experience online. And actually, for our undergraduate students, we have been doing this online teaching for about 3 months already. Increasingly, we're getting a lot of requests from students. They're eager to come back to the campus. They try to figure out any way they can come back. But it looks like this semester there's no hope anymore. Probably right now we're aiming for September, the fall semester. So there's no way you can replicate this kind of on-campus colorful experience. But I think let me take one step back. If the current situation lasts for 1 more year or maybe 2 more years, I think a lot of things will be totally different. And then probably we're going to be forced to think about which models probably are more effective in terms of giving the students a sense of full services, a sense of almost equal learning experience. And I hope we're not going to address this question, anytime soon. But there's some probability that if we cannot contain this virus soon, we may have to force ourselves to face this kind of a situation. We have to think about how to, solve this problem. Thanks.
Thanks to you. And last but not least, Dean Lu. How can we replicate the nice experience of being in Guangzhou?
So, yeah, it's currently it's very hard to duplicate the campus life online. So, in my view, so it depends on the technology. So, if technology develop very quickly, so maybe can partly duplicate the part of the campus life online. So this summer we will hold summer camp. So we'll use the virtual summer camp. So, but currently, so it's very hard. But I believe with the development, if you go to the platform, the Douyin, the TikTok, so Douyin, so it's very powerful. So I believe so in the future, so So many campus life can realize on online, but currently, so we still expected or relying on the technology development. Thank you.
Thanks to you all. It has been extremely interesting. I have now the difficult task of trying to summarize or making a few highlights of this conversation, and I'm trying to do my best. So let me just say it's not a summary, but let me see if I can make a few highlights of what we have been talking. I guess that all of us, and also the other schools I've been talking to in different parts of the world, we were not prepared for this situation. But even though I believe that, I mean, most of us or many of us, we did quite well in adapting to the new online delivery as an emergency situation. But as it has been mentioned, what is key is technology. Technology is going to be key if we would like to maintain or to deliver a good learning experience. All the schools have been doing lots of things to keep on contact with the students, with alumni, with the different stakeholders. You see, at the SADE we have this Stay Connected channel where every week we have a number of webinars to different publics. So, I mean, we've been doing lots of things to maintain the contact with the different stakeholders. What is also quite clear is that the speed has changed, and we have to react probably quickly and faster than before. As of the future, it is also quite clear that the higher education industry, is going to be completely changed after this crisis, and that the future is hybrid. We've been talking about hybridization for many years, but we've been probably going very slow into that path. Now, COVID has definitely send us in that direction in a swim or sink type of situation. But future is going to be hybrid. Hybridization is here to stay. As of next fall, there is a lot of uncertainty about what is going to happen. And if I can, read the general feeling, the general feeling is not very much optimistic about what is going to happen. Yes, students will come back to campus. Yes, campus will be reopened, but we anticipate that and it's going to take some time to get international mobility coming back the way we knew international mobility. There will be probably some international mobility, but not as before. But let me also have a look at the positive things. This crisis has been also an opportunity for business schools, and it has been an opportunity for reinventing things, for looking at contents, and for looking at methodologies. And also, as it has been said during the discussion, new lines of research have emerged or can emerge as a consequence of COVID and everything that has been involved with COVID. And last but not least, the message of strong partnerships are needed more than before. The only way of being successful in this new future is to forge strong partnerships amongst different business schools. And these have been the main highlights that I have been taken. I really thank you very much, the three Chinese deans that have been here with us today, Dean Chen, Dean Liu, Dean Lu. Thank you very much for your contribution. Thank you very much for your expertise and for sharing your insights. I hope this has been extremely useful as well for the audience. I have been reported that we had audience coming from all over the world. We had people connecting from China, people connecting from Asia, from all over Europe, also from Latin America, from different continents. So we had really a global reach with this seminar. And I hope that our conversation has been useful for other deans or senior administrators at different business schools. So again, thank you very much for participating in these webinars, and for the rest of the audience, remember this channel, stay connected with ESADE. Thank you very much.
Thank you.